This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Sahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwallpod podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 355 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Wulsko, and today we will talk about Borussia Dortmund's 3-1 win away to RB Leipzig, and we will preview Saturday's match against bottom dwellers Mainz 05. For all that and more, joins me Matthias Zug. Hello Matthias, how are you doing? I'm glad you survived the virus infection that you had.
I am doing well, Stefan. Yes, I mean it's still a little bit there, still
but
lingering.
You don't sound like Darth Vader anymore.
No. It's a lot better. Thankfully it's not the virus. It was just a virus. They're still here, and but it's much better. I feel much better. There's nothing quite like spending your birthday last week with fever on the couch and coughing. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, just what you need.
Exactly. But how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I gotta say, all things considered, considering that COVID is going on and we had a little fascist attempted coup here not too long ago, and I think I don't know about you, but I'm a lover of democracy, so anything going in that direction always affects me personally, and I feel a little traumatized by it, definitely. So, but I think I've gotten to deal with it a little bit as time has progressed. So I'm okay, and obviously Dortmund's performance against Leipzig has helped as well. And on a personal note, I'm also very happy that the Sixers did not trade Ben Simmons for James Harden, which was a little scary yesterday. So, but enough about me, Matthias. It's time to dive into the game that happened last Saturday, the Topspiel, where Dortmund came away victorious.
Just has a habit of getting the ball when he wants it, and he's got it now into the box. Haaland cuts it back, little flick, Sancho makes no mistake, and the scoring has begun. For Haaland, good physical strength from Haaland, and he's just walking through the Leipzig players like they weren't there. That was excellent from Erling Haaland. Can, Guerrero, little flick, Sancho, back post, 2-0. Just arriving behind Royce. That's a typical Haaland ball. He got two. Last time he came, he's got two. This time he came to Leipzig.
Yeah, I think that was really fun, and all three goals were probably in the top 10 of goals that Dortmund scored this season. Just the open play goals were all rather beautiful, but obviously they all happened in the second half. I think the first one was scored in like the 54th minute or so. I haven't written it down. But Matthias, before we talk about the nice, playful goals that Dortmund scored, we have to talk about that first half, because that was a very interesting first half. Afterwards, I think the official Bundesliga expected goal stats had a 0.1 for Leipzig and 0.0 for Dortmund. So in terms of action in front of the goals, it wasn't all that exciting. However, I still think that it's a half that's meaningful for Dortmund.
No, I completely agree. I was very impressed by Dortmund in that first half. I mean, granted, you should never look at Twitter, but in general. But if you looked at it, you'd think Dortmund were losing like 5 or 6-0 in that first half. And what it really, I think the best way you could say it was, an intense tactical midfield battle. I mean, yeah, there was a little bit more in Dortmund's third than in Leipzig's third, but it was very much in the middle of the pitch. Dortmund frustrated Leipzig. Dortmund played a very effective more defensive-oriented pressing game. It wasn't a low block, but it was definitely more a mid-block, let's call it that. And they stifled Leipzig like not many teams have over that long of a period of time. And it's really an area that people don't talk about Dortmund. I mean, people like to point out when Dortmund make defensive errors, which I think it's a little bit magnified at times more than it should be. But in moments like this, Dortmund played a cagey, intelligent, mature first half to also kind of find out what Leipzig are all about. And then in the second half, they just tore them to pieces. Has to be said, it was a dominant, 100% completely deserved victory. And, you said those goals were in the top 10. I would say this performance was in Dortmund's top 1 of the season. I mean, this was the best, most complete performance overall in all phases of the game. And so the first half I actually thought was very good. Was it exciting? No. But it was very intriguing to watch how Dortmund dealt with obviously a very talented, tactically astute, and aggressive Leipzig side. And I thought they did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, what's very interesting is what RB Leipzig wrote in Substack. I don't know, it's probably over 4,000 words, probably less, but a lot of screenshots. And he wrote a whole post just about the first half and how Dortmund sort of their game design was to let Willi Orban run free or roam free a little bit because they were intent on closing down Upamecano and Halstenberg in Leipzig's back three. So he was sort of the one to make the play, and Gio Reyna was sort of tasked with shutting him down, but also trying to keep the guy in behind on the wings covered. And I think that was really interesting to read. For Reyna to sort of switch between Orban and Tyler Adams. And a bit of Dani Olmo to try to keep that one close. And I will wrote about the instructions that Reyna got live on the field by the coaching staff, be it Tesic or Otto Addo, whether he should progress or stay back, etc., etc. So in general, though, I think you're absolutely right. The way Dortmund have shut down Leipzig in the first half, and the way Leipzig was sort of reverting to a lot of crosses, I think that speaks for itself. I don't have the number written down. How many crosses they played, but
I want to say it was like 19, which is very high for them.
Yeah,
significantly higher than, but I may get that wrong, but it was much higher. That was clearly the route of attack that they used when they realized they couldn't go through the center.
So arguably a season high for Leipzig, because I feel like season high is going to be the episode title of this episode. Interesting. I mean, in the first half, they got 3 shots off. Yusuf Poulsen had a header after 25 minutes. Dani Olmo had a blocked shot after 27, after 38 minutes, and then another Olmo shot off target from 23 yards out. So, not a lot of production here, and it was kind of interesting that the second half then looked so completely differently to the first half. But obviously one turning point of the game, if you will, is that Axel Witsel sadly picked up an injury. He tore his Achilles heel, or his Achilles tendon to be more precise, and he will be out for the rest of the season. He received surgery on Monday, I think, in Antwerpen, in Belgium, by his national team doctor. I think he conducts surgery. I don't know, but that's what the report said. And I'm just going to trust it for now. And I don't know if he'll be ready or able to play in the Euros or not. I don't know how long he will be out and how long rehab goes. But it's obviously a big blow for Dortmund, because Axel Witsel is an important player of Dortmund. And even though Dortmund improved with his absence, having him around is still important. So I wasn't too happy when I saw the double pivot lineup, Delaney and Witsel. But at the same time, over the course of the season, you still want to have Witsel. So his loss overall, I think, hurts Dortmund. And I don't know what you make of it, Matthias, but I think it's rather critical. The only good news is obviously that Dortmund have plenty of depth on that position. I mean, Mahmoud Dahoud didn't even make the trip to Leipzig.
Yeah, the long lost Mahmoud. Where in the world is Waldo's? Where in the world is Mahmoud? But yeah, I mean, if there's a position where Dortmund can, quote unquote, afford to have some injuries, it's obviously in that 6-8 position, because there are a lot of them. I expect to see a lot of Emre Can, especially because he played exceptionally well against Leipzig, Bellingham, and then maybe even Dahoud. When you talked about, and I just confirmed, it was 19 crosses for Leipzig, Dortmund only playing 8. So, I mean, that shows a lot. Obviously, crossing a lot when there are 3 defenders, central defenders, and you have a lone striker seems a little pointless. But there are other little things, like little hints beyond what you see as to what happened in that match. From a statistical standpoint, Dortmund played about 100 less passes, way more long balls, a lot more through balls. Leipzig didn't attempt a single through ball, which is really interesting. They didn't try to get through Dortmund's defense. And the one that kind of I found interesting was, even though Dortmund played 100 less passes, the average pass streak, so the amount of combination passes, was 4. With Leipzig playing 100 more passes and trying to focus on short passing through the middle, their average pass streak was only 5. So Dortmund did a very good job in disrupting their pass game. In fact, if you look at how often each team got dispossessed, Leipzig was dispossessed at a rate of 2-1 over Dortmund, and it was predominantly the attacking players. The most dispossessed Dortmund player, unfortunately, is Rafael Guerreiro, which, if that happened in Dortmund's defensive third, that's a huge warning sign, but it usually happened in the midfield or further up, actually. But what that shows is Dortmund were so effective at shutting down passing lanes and really doing what a lot of teams have done to Dortmund, which is controlling the half space, not allowing the opposition through. And, the difference is, Leipzig then resorted to crosses and long shots. You mentioned those 3 shots. I struggle to really think of many, but where Leipzig decided to take a shot, 58% of Leipzig shots happened outside the box. Dortmund, 67% of their passes happened in the 18 yards, in the box. So that right there shows a lot about how effective Dortmund were defensively and attacking-wise. They outshot Leipzig, and they picked better shots. So it was a very, very mature performance. So, when you look at it statistically even, it underlines how well Dortmund really played.
Yeah, it was well-deserved. Also from an expected goal standpoint, FBref/StatsBomb says Leipzig had 1.1 in the end, and Dortmund 2.4, and Dortmund's 2.4 obviously all came in the second half. What I found interesting, and I think we should keep throwing stats around. I think my favorite stat overall is that Dortmund scored now one quarter of Leipzig goals that they have conceded, because I think previously it was 9, now they have conceded 12. So that's a pretty good one. As to Guerreiro and Meunier, Abel Messeros wrote that both accounted for 29% of Dortmund's turnovers, and in many cases, it was, especially in the first half, came down to poor positioning. In Meunier's case, also poor body positioning when you can make a run into space, but your body is sort of pointing toward your own goal. That's not how you accelerate and gain any ground. And obviously, it also had to do just with the level of aggression that Dortmund played with, because that changed significantly in the second half. And Dortmund had a couple season highs, and I want to thank Adam Dorowski for pointing most of them out. And you can read it in a more cohesive piece called Dorowski's stats sheet on the Yellowwall.net. But Dortmund had a season high in tackles, 31. They had a season high in interceptions with 28. They had a season high in clearances, 33. And now we come to my favorite segment, which is pressures. And that Dortmund blew completely out of the park. They had a season high of 253 pressures. The second highest previously was against Club Brugge with 217. So it's 36 more pressures than the previous season high. And successful pressures, Dortmund had 101, which is also 36 more than the previous season high. Same game against Bruges. I think it was a home game where Dortmund had 65. So it just completely shoots out. And obviously that translates to individual or personal season highs in pressures. Rafael Guerreiro had 17, Akanji had 17, Hummels 19, Emre Can 20, Thomas Delaney 29, Gio Reyna 32, and Marco Reus had a whopping 44 pressures. And the 44 pressures rank him 9th best across Europe's top 5 league for individual performances this season. He is tied with Luca Dio from Nimes and Toni Kroos from Real Madrid in that category. So that is obviously a lot to take in, but it really shows you how Dortmund pressed Leipzig to shreds in the second half and how effective it is. And, I really just want to highlight again the 44 pressures of Marco Reus. That's kind of precious because I think Marco Reus at his best is exactly that player where he terrorizes the opposition, where he pressures them either from behind or from the front and wins a lot of balls or forces turnovers in exactly those positions where Dortmund are the most lethal, because Leipzig could not deal with that pressure and lost the ball in Dortmund's half space time and time again. And their build-up completely collapsed and Dortmund just dominated them in a way that's just beautiful to watch, because Dortmund got to play transition football. Leipzig offered them spaces. They were not organized, and there was some really good combination play coming out of it. But even more importantly, it helped Dortmund keep Leipzig away from their own goal. And that's even more interesting in the way that Leipzig had, I think, the second most touches in Dortmund's own third. I think this season only Bayern had more. Leipzig had, I think, 199 touches in Dortmund's third. And we've already discussed their attacking output, which was not really great, which goes to show that in pretty much every area of the pitch, Dortmund controlled Leipzig defensively. And that's, I think, the most important takeaway from this game. But Matthias, let's talk a little bit more about the pressures, because season highs in these categories against Leipzig is obviously something that requires bravery, because Leipzig are a very good team. They're second place and they know how to play football. So coming out against this side in the second half and blowing them away the way Dortmund did takes some serious balls.
Well, it does. I mean, there's some confidence that got gained back. I mean, Dortmund showed against a tactically astute, defensively sound Wolfsburg side a very good performance, and I think that was needed also for confidence at a time where people were questioning it a lot of times. And now they came against Leipzig and did basically the same thing, just even better. And they looked better. They had a clear plan, and the plan worked. And what's interesting is people don't want to give any credit to Dortmund's coaching staff for this. I can't remember who it was, but a few people were like, well, look at, Terzic is probably going to get, a lot of credit for this. Well, I mean, yeah, he probably should, as should the entire coaching staff, because players don't get together and say, hey, this is what we're going to do today. That's not how this happens at this level. I mean, this is clearly analyzed, studied, and then the players have to translate that. But I think it was a complete performance also from the coaching staff. Substitutions went well. Obviously, Witzel coming off, that wasn't planned. But it was great to see. And the other thing is Jadon Sancho had an extremely good match. And it was great to see, because before Wolfsburg, everybody was like, he's totally off. I mean, when he missed that one huge opportunity in the previous match, I was like, oh, he's off. His head's not in the game. And I was part of that. I mean, I was like, oh my God, how do you miss that? Well, he turned it around against Wolfsburg, but there were still issues. But here against Leipzig, I'll be honest, Jadon Sancho had a complete match. I mean, he was the best player out there. And Leipzig could not deal with him at all. And obviously they couldn't deal with Haaland either, which is, you know, they're not special in that regard. He's hard to take care of in general. But Jadon Sancho just bossed it. You know, we're having a bit of a stat fest here, but Dortmund had 15 key passes. Jadon Sancho had 7 of them. Leipzig had 6 total. You know, I mean, that right there shows how complete and dominant he was. And when you look at overall passing success, he completed 87% of his passes. That's an insanely high statistic for an attacking player. When you look at Leipzig's 3 attacking players of Forsberg, Paulsen, and Olmo had 76. That was the highest. So that just shows how well Jadon Sancho played. And he was really the catalyst for the success that Dortmund had on the day.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I would like to take some credit because I said Leipzig were going to win 3-1, and then I announced my reverse jinx. But sadly, I cannot because at the time of the recording, I was not aware that Julian Nagelsmann, who obviously, when I'm like a level 15 paladin, he's like a level 60 clown. When he said that he's planning with a win, yeah, that was obviously going to jinx Leipzig.
What the hell? Seriously, what the hell is that? I mean, he is destined to be a Bayern coach because he's got the Bayern asshole DNA to 100%. I mean, it's like, really? You know, you're playing against Dortmund and not Schalke, right? Like, this is an actually really good team. And to say something that cocky and arrogant, I'm glad Dortmund stuffed it down his throat.
Yeah, I took the opportunity to do one of these how it started, how it's going tweets because yeah, it's just kind of hilarious. But no, what I find very satisfying is that we have been talking, and obviously the press has been asking Edin Terzic almost every news conference about how he's planning to bring Reus and Sancho back to form. And the way Haaland, Reus and Sancho combined for the first goal is just absolutely delicious, because that little flicked back heel by Reus, this is perfect lure for Sancho. It's just amazing to see, and that's the kind of, you know, free-flowing football you want to see, and you know these guys are capable of, but obviously you need the little bit of lightness and ease and pizzazz to pull these kinds of things off. And so it's really nice to see that Marco Reus has the awareness, because in most of these situations he likes to take a shot, but that he knew that there was a better placed player behind him, or, you know, had the instinct. Congratulations. And obviously that Jadon Sancho would just have a dry shot to the short post and just put it away, was obviously very important and also kind of amazing. So just overall how Dortmund broke through from, I think it was a throw-in, like, and then 1-2 between Reus and then Haaland. And yeah, when Haaland, you know, sparks the afterburner, he is really hard to stop. So yeah, I think it was really important to see them sort of link up. And this has then been, I think, sort of the theme for every goal. So Matthias, I've had a little Twitter poll, and I was asking people whether they, you know, which goal was their favorite. And I think the 2-0 overall, which was obviously that insane Haaland solo. What was your favorite though?
Yeah, that was definitely it. I mean, his physical power to just manhandle and dominate the Leipzig players, and then just the entire flow of how that all came together. I think I tweeted gorgeous goal. I mean, that's what I thought of there. I mean, it was the complete goal. Went over multiple stations, but it really it underlined. I don't even think difference maker is the right term for Haaland at this point. He's like team wrecker, because Dortmund obviously looked totally different. He, with or without him, I mean, he is that dynamic of an extreme when it comes to the type of player he is. So that's definitely my favorite one.
Yeah, I mean, Haaland now has scored 12 goals, 2 assists in the 10 Bundesliga appearances this season, and he's scoring a goal every 68.5 minutes. So that alone is an amazing statistic, but it almost belies his performances and the integral part he is playing. Because if you look at, how he, I think, dribbled past 3 defenders and then passed the ball through another 2. That's just an insane move, and it's really hard to defend. Leipzig obviously could have stopped him with a foul, but otherwise they can't. And just the way Dortmund then distributed possession, like just quickly, you had a couple of back heels in there, and then Jadon Sancho with a cross. And Haaland then using all his physicality to just force this one with his head over the line. So an amazing goal. What also is really interesting about the 3-0 that Dortmund scored is how tired Leipzig were at the end of the game, because you do not let Marco Reus be this open for this long, sort of in the number 10 spot. And obviously Haaland's legs extend forever and ever, that he still got to the ball and managed then to round Gulaschi is obviously an amazing feat. I think that's really the key to Dortmund's game, that they managed to outlast Leipzig and really won the game in a very physical battle. So we've talked about this very often, that Dortmund sometimes get bullied, and Mats Hummels specifically talked about exactly this issue in an interview, I think, in that week. So, Matthias, just seeing that Dortmund were more roughing up Leipzig than the other way around, I think was for Dortmund fans also very pleasing.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it shut a lot of people up, because I think a lot of people shared Nagelsmann's overly confident, arrogant attitude, even though when you looked at how Dortmund dealt with a very difficult Wolfsburg side the week before, I'm a little confused by this overconfidence and lack of confidence in Dortmund's abilities, because they've shown more ability than lack thereof over the course of the last few years. So it was great to see Dortmund boss. I mean, they bossed that game. There's no question about it, and boss a very good team. That is yes, hateable to the nth degree. So it was good to see, and Dortmund also didn't shrink from the physicality of the way Wolfsburg played. So I think it was actually, from a setup of matches, the way they worked together, first Wolfsburg and then Leipzig, was actually really good, because you're dealing with 2 defensively sound, physical, tactically astute teams with dangerous attacking players that are pushing for Champions League spots. So, I mean, it was actually a perfect combo. It could have gone horribly bad, obviously, but it didn't. Dortmund were mature against Wolfsburg and dominant against Leipzig. And I expect that now to continue.
Yeah, we got a question from Awesome Bill on Twitter, and he asked about not subbing out Haaland in the end, because it looked a little like Tigges coming on, and I think Brandt alongside him came on for Reus and Sancho. I personally don't think that that Terzic was planning to take Haaland off. I think that was just the substitution, but obviously when you're 3-0 up, you theoretically can take Haaland off there, especially knowing his history with hamstring injuries, and if he goes out, then that's a big worry. So, Matthias, do you think that Terzic should have brought Haaland off as well there?
No. I think we can't forget we had this match once against Leipzig in Dortmund when there were fans in the stadium, where Dortmund were better and dominant and then imploded at the beginning of the second half. And the fact that, Leipzig did get a goal back, keeping him on there keeps it kept Leipzig honest. That's the thing. They can't overcommit to the attack because you have to account for Holland. If you're only accounting for Tigges, you're more likely to go, we'll give him a little extra room, even though that almost proved fatal. So to keep a team like Leipzig honest, even at that scoreline, I agree with keeping Holland on. Now, if it was the same scoreline against, say, the upcoming opponent in Mainz or someone that's not one of the top 5 or 6 teams, I would have taken him off. But against that, you force the opposition to account for him. And that means they can't just throw everything at you.
Yeah, I mean, as Abel pointed out, at least in the entire first half, Leipzig pretty much had Haaland in double coverage. And I think it showed that he was pretty much isolated. But that's not only due to the double coverage, it was also just because Dortmund were all forced to the wings and then sort of lost the ball there. But yeah, it's quite amazing how Dortmund turned this around with the energetic style they played in the second half and how they just crushed Leipzig. So I'm really happy with that. But that being said, Matthias, if we shall move on to the next game, Dortmund have made it a habit to look really good against top teams in the Bundesliga and then turn around and lay an egg against the bottom dwellers. And now they meet Mainz 05, who are obviously in 18th place. Mainz so far have won only one game against Freiburg. They have otherwise 3 draws and 11 losses. Mainz arrive in Dortmund on a 7-game winless streak. They are the 4th worst attack in the Bundesliga with 14 goals scored and the 2nd worst defense with 33 goals against. You can take a guess who the worst defense is. Leading goal scorer of Mainz is Mateta, obviously, with 7 goals. From their 6 points, 4 of them came on the road. So that's something to keep in mind, I guess. And obviously, they have a total of 7 scorers, but only Quaison is the only other player next to Mateta who scored more than 1 goal. Quaison has scored 2 goals. So, does not bode too well for Mainz, that their attacking output is not that great. But that being said, they scored 2 goals away to Bayern in the Allianz Arena, and if it weren't for conceding 5 in the second half, they looked on to like a team that actually could get something away to Munich. I think Jan Siewert was the interim coach for that 5-2 loss. Since then, Bo Svensson has taken over, and he lost the first game a little bit undeserved. People say, I don't know, I didn't watch it against Frankfurt. It was a 2-0 loss last weekend, so obviously, Mainz in general are an opponent that Dortmund like to play against, especially at home. And, that being said, last time around, it was a 2-0 loss at home on the 32nd match day. And that, I think in between came the really good performance away to Leipzig. So, Edin Terzic was warning at today's press conference like heck about this game. Matthias, is this the classic old Dortmund trap game, or do you think that this will be the bigger indicator of Dortmund's upswing in form than maybe Wolfsburg and Leipzig?
I don't know if it's going to be a bigger indicator playing against the bottom team. I don't see it as being the trap game because I think Mainz are just really bad, to be honest. It's not, oftentimes people tweet something they regret sending it out. It's not often that you regret not tweeting something. When I saw the scoreline against Bayern, I was like, yeah, cue Bayern 5-2 win. And then they did. I was like, oh man, I should have tweeted that.
What's the value in being right about Bayern winning again, Matthias? What's the value? Please explain.
Well, I think it's very high value. I mean, teams that lose against Kiel, they're just, that's tough, man. I mean, if you're struggling in the Zweite Bundesliga like Bayern are, then things are difficult. I feel for them.
Yeah, we actually
it's the time of empathy.
Yeah, of course it is. But we actually did forget in terms of empathy to feel with Bayern and their Friday loss against Gladbach, because that obviously was in the context, or Dortmund's win was sort of in the context of Leipzig having the opportunity to go first. So that's it could have really been a 9-point game for Dortmund, meaning that had they lost, they would have been 9 points behind Leipzig. Now it's 3 points. So, the quote unquote 6-point game, makes it really important that Dortmund came away victorious. And now obviously Dortmund are still 5 points off the top of the table, but at least Bayern right now have a little dip in form. So maybe Dortmund can somehow exploit that. I'm a little bit, reserved yet to jazz it up to, Dortmund are back in the title race and everything's possible now. First of all, beat Mainz and then we'll see. But second of all, Bayern are still Bayern. So, it was obviously fun to watch them go out against Kiel, but I'm not entirely sure how long their winless streak will go on. But that being said, they will now face Freiburg, who have won 5 games on the bounce, which is, I think, a club record for Freiburg, and they just pounced Cologne 5-0. So one can be a little hopeful that Freiburg might get a point or even 3 at the Allianz Arena, but I digress. Matthias, back to Mainz. It's obviously a complicated team in the sense that they will, I guess, just sit back and try to hit Dortmund on the counter, and other teams have had success with that tactic before. So what does Dortmund need to do better than they did against, say, Augsburg or Stuttgart against Mainz?
I don't know, be creative, not play with Witzel and Delaney, which obviously will not happen. Add some more creative flair to the side. I think timing-wise, this couldn't be worse for Mainz because you have Jadon Sancho back in form and full of confidence.
And Marco Reus, who was, I think, scored
and Marco
7
Reus
goals
as
against
well.
Mainz.
Exactly. And Holland. And Delaney's playing well. And Can played well. And, Hummels is on top game. Akanji doing well. So it's not a good time for Mainz to face Dortmund. If they could have picked it, they would have picked it at the, mid-December. That would have been a perfect time. The nice thing is right now also all the media focus is on Bayern's crisis, and everyone's ignoring Dortmund now because unfortunately for the Bild Zeitung, Dortmund won these 2 matches. But I just see, I'll be honest, I mean, Freiburg's not going to beat Bayern. I think I'll just go out on a limb there. But here, I'll be honest, if Dortmund just don't play naive, if they add some creativity, if they show some movement, and if they make sure that they don't lose Mateta in terms of, where'd he show up? Where'd he go? And, defend corners. Let's not forget that. Which, by the way, Leipzig were really bad at. I mean, their corners were bad. That was bad set piece taking from them. So, that's the key thing. Shore up your set pieces, even though Mainz aren't really, they haven't scored much from set pieces. They're not overly concerned with crossing, but again, they've changed managers. So it's kind of a Wundertüte, see what happens, approach. But yeah, the trying to soak up pressure and then having someone like Mateta to get on the end of a long ball for a goal. That is obviously going to be the tactic, as well as trying to get set pieces. So Dortmund have to do two main things, or 3 main things. Be creative to unlock them, so don't be so static like you have been. Don't concede stupid set pieces, and make sure, honestly, I would just put Akanji in on Mateta, because then you have the right speed matchup, and that way you don't have Mateta isolated against Hummels. Hummels positionally will beat Mateta, but if the ball somehow gets through, Mateta will blow past Hummels just for speed. So, kind of make Akanji, basically, it was kind of like, wasn't it Weghorst who was having nightmares of Akanji for days after that because Akanji was just on him all the time? I would do the exact same thing here against Mainz because Mainz only have one attacking threat, and that's Mateta. So you may as well put your fastest central defender, and honestly one of the fastest players on your team, on him. Yeah. That's what I would do.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the first point because if Dortmund can build on the performances against Wolfsburg and Leipzig, then we can maybe even see some free-flowing football against Mainz and even a defensive side. Obviously, you can't take it for granted what happened against Leipzig, because entirely different game, entirely different situation, entirely different opponent. And so it's not the easiest task to break down an opponent like Mainz, but obviously they are last in the table. They are prone to individual errors. So you got to force those, and Dortmund have shown in the past frequently against Mainz that they can do that Mainz are prone to errors. And I'm looking forward to Daniel Brusinski getting yet another yellow card, because I think every time he plays against them, he gets booking. At least I think so far in the matchups he has gotten 3. He's like leading in yellow cards against Dortmund in this matchup. So yeah, this is something I'm looking forward to, that Dortmund exploit Mainz's defenders, because they're just not really good individually. So this is where they need to be bullied and punished. And if Reus, Sancho and Haaland all keep up that, form, and even Gio Reyna checks back into the goal and assist providing department, then I think this should be a very nice Saturday morning / afternoon, depending on where you live in the world, or even evening. So Matthias, I personally am predicting that Dortmund are winning this 3-0. And what about you?
I was going to go with that same scoreline, because I was first like, I'm feeling confident, 4 or 5 goals. No, let's not go there. And because that did go well the last time I did that. So I'm going to go with the 3-0 as well.
Okay, so one little warning is that Emre Can and Thomas Delaney are both on 4 yellow cards right now. So be kind of nice going into a week where Dortmund will face, I think, aren't they going to face Leverkusen and then Gladbach consecutively in an English week? If I'm not mistaken, it kind of be nice if not both are out against Leverkusen, because then you would have a Bellingham, Dahoud double pivot, and Bellingham just recovered from injury and Dahoud is out of match practice. So that'd be kind of awkward, but obviously something to keep an eye on. But I mean, you'll realize when it happens, even without my warning. So anyway, Matthias, I think we can knock it on the head here. I had fun discussing it, and I'm very glad you came prepared with all the statistics you had, because that was a nice addition to the statistics that Adam Dorowski prepared for me. So yeah, please tell our listeners how to follow you on Twitter.
You can follow me on Twitter at Matthiasuk, and it was a pleasure. And, after a match like that, you got to delve into the stats and show just how much better Dortmund are than the trash from Leipzig.
Yeah, but the really nice thing is that was one of those games where the stats almost 100% backed up the things that you saw on the field. So it's always nice when statistics back up your narrative, other than you go and check because you thought something you saw will be backed up and then it's the complete opposite. So that was nice. So thank you, Dortmund, for doing that. And obviously having so many season highs exciting against a second place team like Leipzig, who thought they were on high form and could just kill Dortmund willy-nilly, and then ended up getting sucker punched 3 times. Or not even, that's too gracious on Leipzig here, just getting utterly destroyed in the second half and pressed to shreds. So I really hope that we will see more of that from Dortmund. Matthias, maybe lastly, I mean sort of almost the intro, but it just popped into my head. Do you think that it helped that Dortmund played a low energy football, quote unquote, under Lucien Favre, which obviously I don't want to insult him, but that they now have a bit more left in the tank to play a high aggressive pressing style for games like this? Because look at Bayern, they always play a high aggressive style, and now they're completely running out of energy. But Dortmund looked pretty fresh here on last Saturday.
No, I think it does play a role, but also the first half where Dortmund sat back a little bit more, defended a little bit more, weren't as extremely pressing and high up the pitch, helped as well. Whereas, like you had mentioned, Leipzig kind of ran out of gas when Dortmund still had plenty left. So absolutely agree.
All right. So you can find me at Stefan Butzko. You can find all of us on Yellowwallpod on Twitter and Facebook. And obviously, if you want to read our written content, go to theyellowwall.net. If you want to contribute financially to the show, sponsor an episode, etc., go to patreon.com/theyellowwall for more information. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel or subscribe to us via iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, etc. And we shall be back after the game against Mainz, because we have to obviously preview the match against Leverkusen, which will obviously also be a lot of fun, hopefully. So until then, as always, stay safe and goodbye.